Okay, we are live. Welcome everybody to episode 5 of Sagas Sass. Tonight, we are going to be discussing Ruin and Rising, the third and final book in the Grisha Trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. So we're going to start tonight's episode a little bit differently. I'm Tara. I'm here with my hosts, Nick, Nami, and Jonathan. And we're going to start this episode by doing a little fun summary of the book. We've split it up so that we're all going to read a portion of it, but thank you, Nick, for putting this together. This is a really cool idea. I honestly, I wish I had come up with something fun like this prior to this, but I'm excited to do this tonight and to continue it going forward because I think that it's going to be a really different and interesting way to start the podcast, whatever. So let's get to it, y'all. We are on the third and final book of the Shadow and Bone trilogy, Ruin and Rising. This is a story all about how a young woman has to rise up and ruin a Dark Lord. I don't know if that's what you meant, Nick, when I almost wrapped the whole thing, but I was like, no, I can't get this rhythm right now. See what I did there? See what Nick did there anyway. Anyway, we pick up where Storm and Siege left off, and it is not a good look for our hero. Including the hair, y'all. Alina, she's super weak. She has a lot riding on her, but luckily the Apparat and the other religious zealots that worship her as a saint are protecting her. I mean, they're kind of creepy, but at least she's safe. Meanwhile, the nasty and probably at least a little pedophilic Darkling is amassing his power and spreading shadows everywhere. So Alina realizes that she has to do what any young woman who has a whole society relying on them to save the world must do. She has to find the Firebird and harness its power. Duh.
Luckily, one of Alina's love interests, Mal, is the best tracker in the whole damn world, and he's down to find shit for our girl. They decide that while their friends try to find the Firebird, Mal will try to find Nikolai, who is dreamy and also a prince, and also they think maybe he can manipulate the air. Anyway, surely together, Alina and Nikolai can take down the mean and nasty and not that hot Darkling. They find Nikolai, and he's like, fuck yes, I'll help you. Also, marry me. But the Darkling's army shows up to ruin things as usual, and everyone almost dies. But they don't. Nikolai promises to help, and they all go to Bagra so she can help Alina get her powers back. Alina essentially has a training montage and then decides it's time to fight the Darkling. Nikolai thinks this is the perfect time to bring up marriage again. Alina intellectually thinks it's a good idea, but to be honest, she just doesn't like him like that, which is nuts because Nikolai can get it.
It doesn't really matter, though, because the Darkling attacks again, kidnaps Alina, turns Nikolai into a shadow creature, and kills Bagra, his fracking mom. Not cool, Darkling. Alina fracks the Darkling up. It's not enough to kill him, but she does manage to escape. And she, Mal, and the remaining allies leave on Nikolai's airship. And I cannot go down for some reason. All right.
That's okay. We can
now
all pick
more
it up.
than ever, Alina needs
it.
the Firebird. She blames herself for what happened to Nikolai and Bagra, even though it's obviously not her fault at all. It's that dick Darkling. Everyone else tries to tell her this, but she likes to blame herself. Relatable, I guess. Luckily, Mal thinks he's found the Firebird. They track it down, and it's pissy. They fight, and in the chaos, Alina realizes it's not the Firebird she needs to kill, it's Mal. What?
That's great.
But naturally, the Darkling attacks again because he's a basic bitch, and that's all he knows how to do. Alina wishes he would just quit, but he's all, can't stop, won't stop. He also tries to convince Alina that she should be with him again, and we're all like, ew, no, you're so old. Luckily, Alina isn't down for it either, and refuses. She escapes, and Mal is all, if you don't kill me, I'll kill me, because you have to fuck this dude up. Realizing she has no choice, Alina kills Mal, and it's so sad. So sad. But it makes her ridiculously powerful. She fucks up the Darkling's forces, and even though it's draining her power to fight the Darkling, she uses the last of it to kill that asshole. But no! Mal is still dead! Luckily, this is a YA book, so Mal comes back to life, the shadows go away, Nikolai returns to his handsome, charming self, and everyone lives happily ever after. Also, a bunch of random people are sun summoners now. And yeah, happily ever after. Or do they? Dun dun dun.
That was good. I loved it.
I'm just really honored I got to do the dun 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 part.
You did great.
So, okay. So, the first thing I wanted to touch on was, now that we have all finished the series, some of us for the first time, what genre do we actually think this belongs in? I mean, obviously it's kind of categorized as YA, but, is it just YA, or is it high fantasy? Is it dark fantasy? Or Leigh Bardugo noted that her personal favorite term for it is Zarpunk, because as we discussed, I might have been episode 2. I think it was when we were still talking about Shadow and Bone. It's inspired by Tsarist Russia. I do like Leigh Bardugo's note that it has like sabers, muskets, and samovars instead of broadswords, crossbows, and tankards. I like the samovars versus tankards reference particularly. But so yeah, like, what do you guys think in terms of how it would? Is it just YA, or is there more to it than that?
I think it's definitely like fantasy YA, and I think there's like a definite subgenre for YA fantasy stories that have unique magic systems. It's not just the basic witches and wizards. Oh my. Damn it, I need a third one to make it work. Witches and wizards and halflings, oh my. There we go. But yeah, so I think I like the idea of Zarpunk, but for it truly to be like a classification in my head, I'm like, but where are the other ones?
Yeah.
Well, and also I think that when I think of anything with the term punk attached to it, I think like steampunk, and I just don't think that there is enough of like sort of that odd technology in this that would classify it.
So I think that if Nikolai and his inventions had been around from the first book, you could have gotten it. And you do see that more with the technology that they show and talk about in Six of Crows, because obviously we haven't started it yet, but only one of the main characters is Grisha. So you see a lot of like the technology aspect of things there, which I think is cool. I think, the punk part for me, I always get confused when I hear something punk, because either I default to steampunk or like actual punk, and I'm like, what?
But yeah, no, I guess you're right. When we do meet Nikolai in book 2, we do start seeing a little more of that. I mean, some of it's technology and some of it's the combination of technology with Grisha power, which I guess is kind of a good. But then I'm still so if it, I don't know if I would classify it as Zarpunk. I feel like there should be a different word in front of punk, and I might have to think on that for a bit.
There needs to be a classification for fantasy worlds that build on the actual fantasy magic and like the fantasy elements of it, while also building on the technology elements of it. Because you see a lot of books do that well, but usually depending on whatever holds more weight in it, that's where it gets its classification. So for example, books that rely more on magic or like esoteric things get the fantasy genre, and the books that rely more on technology get like a sci-fi genre, and then books that are out in space get like, like what is it? Oh my god. Space opera. Yeah. So like we literally need something like space opera, but like specifically for fantasies with technology.
So I don't know. Yeah, guys, are there anybody else? Like, do you guys have any thoughts on?
I don't consider young adult a genre, really. I think it's a style of writing more than a genre, because young adult can be any genre. A novel can be any genre. I mean, so I would separate the two. I mean, to me, this is fantasy. I don't know if it's high fantasy. I didn't find it terribly dark. I've read some darker stuff than this. Whether it's high fantasy, low fantasy, I sort of would put it in intermediate fantasy, because high fantasy to me is where everything, magic is everything. And that solves every single problem. And that wasn't exactly true in this, but it solved a lot of problems. So
No, I mean, I completely agree. I would not classify this as high fantasy. To me, actually, high fantasy, it feels like a bit bigger and deeper and more than this world is. And I think that Leigh Bardugo has the ability to create a full world that, in the end, could be possibly referred to as high fantasy. But I think she has that ability, but I just don't think that this is the world or the series to really, and that's fine. Like, that's fine. Like, I read plenty of high fantasy. To be honest, high fantasy gets exhausting. Like, the new Brandon Sanderson book is coming out, and I had totally forgotten to pre-order it because I was so exhausted with reading the first 3 books in the Way of Kings series that I was just like, shit, there's a new book coming. All my friends are posting about it. I'm like, oh, I guess I better read that. Not that I don't want to, not that I don't respect Brandon Sanderson and the world that he created, but it is a lot. Mm-hmm. It is a lot.
High fantasy for me always is I feel like one of the hallmarks of it is not only a fantasy world and fantasy setting, but fantasy races as well. So hobbits and elves, and you don't necessarily need halflings, you don't necessarily need elves or need orcs, but having some sort of different fantasy races is sort of always a part of it in my mind. And whether they're humanoid or literal cat people, you do you, and to me, what you said about it being a bit more of a difficult read, high fantasy always struck me as the Tolkien kind of slog, I love Lord of the Rings. I've read all the books. I've read the Silmarillion. I've read the Silmarillion multiple times. I'm coming from a very biased point of view. And that point of view is, I love it, but fuck, man, that's a hard read. You have to be in a mood for it.
Well, the Silmarillion's a hard read, but the other Lord of the Rings books and The Hobbit are relatively short, especially by today's standards.
They're short, yes, but Tolkien has a way of writing that just makes you want to rip your hair out sometimes.
It's very heavy, yeah. I mean, I enjoy.
Is a good word.
I enjoy Lord of the Rings and everything, but yeah, it's not an easily rereadable series.
Yes, That's what I think of with high fantasy. That's what I think of with high fantasy. So I feel like most books that are YA sort of cannot be high fantasy for that very reason, because YA is written with a very specific audience in mind. And while YA can have many genres within it, obviously you're not going to find Shakespearean plays or Tolkien in there, because that's not what YA readers really want, and can't blame them. I had weird tastes as a young adult, so and this is a young adult. Oh god, I think I'm an actual adult now. This is distressing. But yeah, little personal crisis aside. But yeah, I would love to read a Leigh Bardugo high fantasy book though. That sounds
I mean, she definitely goes more adult with her second series, so you know that she can do it for sure.
Her writing grows so much, not just as a general writer and an aware person. # we love growth here, but also just the age that she's writing for.
Yeah.
She's aware of, because she knows that her original fans, the Grishaverse people, are older than they were in 2012, and so she's I think she was very aware of that when she was writing it, because even reading King of Scars now, and I actually stopped about a third of the way through my read of it because I was I'm just going to save it for this, and also because my life is a mess and I don't have time right now, but so reading King of Scars, once again, her writing style has, gotten a little bit older. Her target audience there is a little bit older. It still is YA, but it's very much yes, use your maturity, children. I believe in you.
Didn't I just read that she was coming up with her first first book for adults called Ninth House, I think?
That's already out.
Yeah, that's been out. I haven't read it yet or have any idea what it's about, but
yeah, my understanding that's not a young adult at all. So she's
It's
definitely expanding her own writing style.
I believe
for
it's
her.
thriller horror type.
It's a dark fantasy.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That takes place at Yale.
At Yale. So, but it's a fantasy still.
So fantasy.
Huh, interesting. We'll have to check that out and possibly make ourselves depending on like when the show ever comes out, we might have time that we need to fill. All right, so any other thoughts on like the type of book that this is before we move on to, other things that we wanted to talk about? I want to make sure everybody got their opinions in. So we had a lot of like discussion points and everything. One of the things that was one of the things I definitely wanted to talk about, and I think some of the things like Alina losing her powers entirely at the end, Mal being the third amplifier, et cetera, et cetera. Those are very basic, things. But what I do really like is the Alina bending light, and the fact that Leigh Bardugo specifically said like it's actually one of the most sound pieces of science in the trilogy, that you can Google invisibility cloak technology, and which is funny because that just makes me think of like Harry Potter. But but so I mean, to be honest, I am not a science person or a math person. Funny because I work in the medical field in real IRL in real life, but I mean, it's I don't know. Like, what do you guys think about that? Do you actually think that that this is the most scientifically scientifically sound pieces in the trilogy?
Well, there were three. I mean, that stood out to me. This was one of them. The other was actually earlier, also regarding manipulation of light, which was using the mirrors to basically focus in sort of a poor man's laser weapon. That the mirrors were destroyed, so they didn't really get a chance to use them very well, but that was there too. And then, of course, you had blimps or dirigibles. I'm not sure what they were actually. They never got clear on whether it was a blimp or a dirigible, but so you had that aspect of technology. So there were a few, and then they were using the squallers to move the blimps as opposed to just using an engine with a propeller. But so there was some technology there.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's also guns. Like we do know that they have guns. So, but I think she was saying more along the lines of like, you read
Modern
this and
technology.
you read this and you don't really think that this is something that is possible necessarily, but it actually kind of is.
Yeah, I think another thing that stood out to me was the squallers manipulating like sound.
Yeah.
And kind of like making that sound cloak. And I was like, I'm not very good at physics, but in theory, I understand how it could work. Because if you're talking manipulation on the levels of atoms and you're moving atoms far enough away from each other that they cannot vibrate. And again, I'm not a physicist. I have
I mean, I don't know if you guys looked up the actual idea of invisibility cloak technology, which is, I think that's a weird way to put it, because again, it just sounds very Harry Potter to me. But like, what it has to do with is that a specific wave pattern, like a specific light wave pattern, like can essentially cloak something. Like not hide it entirely, not make it completely invisible, but make it
camouflage.
Less easy. Yeah, camouflage. Less easy to see. Like your eyes would pass, like it's there. And if you really looked, you'd see it, like a dude in camouflage in the forest. But your eyes generally pass over it because they don't think to focus on something that looks super similar to the things surrounding it. And I mean, there's obviously solid bits of actual technology in these books for sure. But,
I kind of liked the oh my god, that thought just flew out of my brain. Watch that occur in real time. But I really liked like the idea that like you can kind of that like you could that like comes up with Genya, that the Darkling is like, I could have had her train as a corporal key as a fabricator, but instead I had her train as a tailor, and like sort of combining the disciplines and like all sorts of that. Once again, this boils down to me loving the magic system and being like, give me more solid, concrete detail on how this all works. Because clearly Leigh like pays attention to science and certain aspects of it, and like has this idea of how the system works in a way that she can incorporate cool things like that camouflage cloak technology stuff into it. And I'm like, I want more of that. Give me more detail. I also just, as a biologist, I enjoy like, you don't really see it as much here, but like info about corporal key and how their abilities work. I just generally find that cool because I'm like, yes, science. They go into that a bit more detail in Six of Crows because one of the main characters is a corporal key, and she talks about like how she corporal keys things.
How she corporal keys things.
How she corporals things.
Corporals things? That just sounds very like militaristic.
I really hope that Leigh Bardugo listens to our podcast at some point and is just like, what is wrong with these people?
Oh no. I am
They clearly know nothing about Leigh Bardugo.
All right. So and again, like we do get more like Nami has mentioned a couple times, we do get more of, honestly, we get more of the idea of Grisha science, particularly the corporality stuff in the Six of Crows duology, and we get more of Nikolai's type of technology in his book in King of Scars, and hopefully even more in the one that's coming out in March. But all of that said, like everything that, and actually that kind of rolls into, because I just mentioned Nikolai, everything that happened with him, like what the Darkling does to him, he literally sends his like dark beings like to possess him essentially, but the fact that he, and I don't know, we don't know for a fact that this is the first time the Darkling has done this. I would guess that he has practiced it or done like he's done something with it, because he knew he could make it. He knew he could make something happen. I don't think this was the first time he tried this, but we, not knowing what his original experiments entailed or how they turned out, it was very interesting that like, the Darkling thinks that he owns Nikolai now, and yet Nikolai fights against it to the point where he follows, Alina and the rest of them. He has his, he has that need or desire to feed, but he fights against it so that he doesn't harm her or anybody in that group, despite the fact that he's like tracking them around. Only Mal's supposed to be able to do that, Nikolai. Geez.
Yeah, but he's a weird shadow monster now, Tara. He gets shadow monster powers.
But but then in the end, like the Darkling dies, and it's like it kind of, he's obviously very scarred from the experience, but he whatever was in him kind of retreats, and he is still. He was always still Nikolai. Like that's what Alina kept really like. Every time she saw him, she really kept like, seeing that he's still Nikolai. And in the end, it's like, yes, he is Nikolai really, but now he's sort of also, there's something else there. But I just honestly, like, poor Nikolai, he did not deserve, like.
He did not. He was the best. He was the best boy, and he did not deserve that.
Seriously. I mean, I don't even know if there's anything to like discuss there other than the fact that like how proud maybe we are of him that he fought against it so much, because that's how strong of a personality he is.
I think you brought up like a really disturbing point though that I hadn't really like dwelled upon. And full disclosure, guys, I wasn't actually able to do the reread this time, but I also only read the book a year ago, so like it is fresh in my brain. But I have a new job and I am surrounded by COVID cases now, and my life is a disaster. So needless to say, I did not reread it this week because did not have the bandwidth. But I think the point of the Darkling clearly practice this just brings up such a disturbing, like, idea that in retrospect, oh my god, obviously he was definitely like practicing these abilities on people and like, you know, like probably torturing some of his followers just to like think of better ways to hurt his enemies. And and like, you know, once again, it's like, yeah, probably definitely expected that, but I'm also like, oh, ew, hate him.
To be honest, it's not something I thought about the first time I read these, but like, yeah, like reading it again this time, like this is obviously not the first time he has done something like this. I mean, he knew it would work. He knew what would happen generally, at least. Like, that's really like I mean, because also like he, you know, it's one thing like you throw people to the Volcra and you know they're gonna eat them. You know what I mean? Like and the Nishkivoya. Gosh, I'm never going to be able to pronounce that. You know that they're
notes.
You know that they're either going to kill them or like even if they just get like a cut in or like they did with Genya in her face, like they did with Alina, like you know that they're going to affect them. But like yeah, it's the idea that he very likely experimented with this, like and he knew that generally like what was going to happen, like, and you don't know who he was doing this to. Like it could have been his followers, but it also could have just been like prisoners of war, but that doesn't make it any different. That is like a special kind of torture because you're changing like the very like you're changing everything about who a person is, really. And like the thing is, like I think what we saw with Nikolai, you know, we saw him still being himself at times in a way because that is this type of personality he has. But what about the people that maybe weren't that strong? And they can like they still know who they are, but they can't fight against it. You know? Like I feel like there had to have been people like that. I mean, I guess we will never know, you know, it's not written in these books and everything or anything, but like that's what's scary, like that there are possibly people out there who went through similar thing or they might be dead now, but who went through a similar thing and they still deep down know who they are, but they don't have the ability to fight against it. So they just hate themselves, like, and what they do and what they have, because what they have to do, what they're driven to do, like all the time.
Yeah, it's also like it made me really think about like just now in the last like 30 seconds about, you know, how the Darkling was probably organizing and like training the corporal key. And like, you know, Alina like says in passing, like, oh yeah, that's the corporal key's rooms. You don't want to go in there. Ew, you sometimes hear creepy noises. And I was like, ha ha, medical jokes. But now I'm like, oh god, medical jokes.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, do you guys have any thoughts on like Nikolai being, I mean, what would you even call this? It's not a Volcra, it's not a Nishkivoya, whatever.
A shadow nope monster?
A shadow what?
A shadow nope monster.
So yeah, any thoughts on Nikolai being one of those? Or Nick, you're muted.
I mean, I just thought of the shadow demons from Justice League.
There you go.
The parademons from Justice League.
I've never been a big Justice League person.
I just want to give Nikolai a hug. Then I'll marry
Don't
him
we all?
instead of Alina, because
I know she doesn't want that emerald. I'll take it.
yeah,
What a
like,
fool.
I would make a fabulous queen. Okay.
also like full disclosure, like A+ on her for like not taking the power play. Like, you know what? All this time she's sitting there, and she's like, I'm getting power hungry. But like, consider, girl, the time that like power was literally offered to you on a platter with a handsome man, you were like, nah. So maybe you weren't power hungry. Maybe you were just slightly going insane with the fact that you had to murder a dude.
It's a tough call.
I mean, no, the Darkling sucks. 11 out of 10 would murder.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm not condoning
Let's
murder.
be honest. Marry, fuck, kill would be real easy in this one.
Yeah.
Easy.
Oh, yeah.
Marry Nikolai, fuck Mal, kill the Darkling, and then
Yeah.
kill the
Yes,
Darkling again,
obviously.
and then kill the Darkling again. Thank you.
All right. So, the last like few discussion points that I had they're pretty, it's all kind of lumped in. Like Alina loses her powers entirely at the end. Mal, well, actually, it starts with Mal being the third amplifier, which to me, I was kind of like, I still don't really know how I feel about that, but like, okay, whatever. And then Alina, loses her powers and
You may want to repeat that, Tara. You froze.
oh, I'm sorry. So I'm still not really sure how I feel about Mal being the third amplifier. Like I'm assuming it was definitely something that, well, I know it was something Leigh Bardugo was playing the whole time because I read an interview with her where she was saying like she makes all these points. I mean, and Alina feeds them back to us, the first time they kissed, the first, or when they hadn't seen each other in a bit, when they were on the boat. I can't remember exactly what they were, but it was like every time like the stag appears and well, she saves Mal and the stag appears and then the sea whip appears and then like the firebird appears. It's all connected to Mal and her and their interactions. But and maybe it's just that I still don't really, I'm still kind of whatever about like that being the connection and to Mal being like the third amplifier. This is pre new Star Wars trilogy, and we're not going to get super into that because I know Jonathan for one does not love it. But like the idea that this super powerful person came from absolutely nothing, and it was actually Mal, who's not a Grisha at all, who's like the descendant of the Darklings.
Morozova.
Yeah, Morozova. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, were we all immediately like, oh yeah, like, yeah, I get it. Mal's the amplifier. Because like both times, like the first time I read it, I was like, come on. And I was really expecting that this time it would be different, but no, I still felt the same way. I still felt kind of like,
I think my reaction wasn't so much, come on. It was more like, I wish the logic behind the idea that the Firebird and any of these amplifiers could be reincarnated was given before. Because that's what I had trouble with. Because the way it made it sound, like the Sea Whip was an immortal creature, the Morozova stag, that stag was like an immortal creature, and then it's like, I'm a boy who was just born. I'm a baby boy. And I was like, okay, like, I get that, yeah. Like, I literally, like, I get that this is what was always planned. And, like, story-wise, I think it makes a lot of poetic sense. And it's like, it made the ending, hit a lot harder because, to like her whole thing is that she wants her power because it's a part of her, and Mal is kind of scared of her power and is like, you were still you without your power. So I find it very poetic that the ending was she gives up her power because the pain of having it after sacrificing Mal for it makes it like it doesn't matter to her because she realizes what matters to her is like her connection to him in a sense. And like, all of that, like, poetic stuff happening there, I liked that and I liked all of it, but like the build up to it, I was like, Mal's the amplifier? Huh? This doesn't really make sense. Because I just wish there was something in there in the lore, like in Leigh's lore about the amplifiers, that the amplifier is something that can be passed down through Morozova blood and made that more explicit. Because once again, we do have the hints that Morozovas are amplifiers because, obviously the Darkling and Bagra are both amplifiers, but it's never also once again brought back that Mal is an amplifier because he's a Morozova, but then he's even more one of these big amplifiers. And like the only reason I was able to sort of accept it was because it's like, oh, he's of this bloodline, and even though he's not Grisha, all these people are amplifiers that we know of. So that kind of made sense. But on like the basis, I was like, it's a legendary amplifier. Why why is it reincarnated? It was never reincarnated before. Is this a thing that just happens? Are there multiple reincarnations of sea whips that just like, whipped around on the ocean? Is the sea whip actually a teenage sea whip? Like what?
It's a babby sea whip. Jonathan, sorry, you were going to say something.
Well, I was just thinking more. Zova's amplifier. All the family members seem to have some amplification abilities themselves, so that part made sense. I think what makes less sense to me is then why were the animals amplifiers?
Well, I mean, the animals are going to amplify anybody, right? Like they are kind of, they're magical, strong animals. What confuses, like, I get why they're amplifiers. What confuses me is that, like Nami was saying, like, so apparently these animals, I don't know if I want to, I don't think it's like a reincarnation or a resurrection or anything. I think it's just, you're supposed to believe that this is the only one, but clearly they're not. And I guess with we see it less with the sea whip because it's a lonely creature, but with the stag, it's I feel like it's with other deer. So like and now I'm, because that was so many books ago, as if I didn't read this just like a month ago or less. But like I don't remember, but I feel like, I don't remember for sure, so I could be wrong, but I feel like the other deer it was with were also white. So I feel like it was probably like, yes, this is a magical like pack of deer, herd of deer. It's a magical herd of deer. Jesus. It's a magical herd of deer. So I get that they would, I guess looking back, I get that they would breed, and there would obviously eventually be, it's like Bambi, eventually there's another king stag that's all white in this case. So with the sea whip, it's a little more like, because the sea whip is clearly alone, but like maybe that's some sort of, it's like the frogs that like change sexes to just like keep making more frogs. You know what I mean? Like there's, but yeah, I think that it could be better. There's no reason it needed to be explained in the first two books, but I feel like there was a good bit of that left out here. And it's like, sure. Mal is of Mortzova's line, so of course he is an amplifier. Because that is what the Darkling is, the Darkling is an amplifier along with his power of being able to control darkness and shadows, and Bagra same. So it's not shocking that Mal, being of that line, is an amplifier. I guess part of it is like, really though, like he has no Grisha powers like at all. Like I think they try to like make us assume that the tracking thing is sort of like a Grisha thing, but it's not. Because it's very much, I don't know, it's very, there's a lot of loose ends there, actually, I think.
So my whole interpretation of the tracking is sort of a Grisha thing, is low key something in between fabricator and corporal key, but like on a different level, like sort of like the connection with nature and like the connection with like inanimate things in nature, and being able to find and notice and like connect with the things that aren't quite there. So I think it could be like, because you get into like some really hand wavy details of how Grisha orders overlap and stuff later into the series and things like that. And just, it sort of seems like another one of those things that like, it's possible that a lot more Grisha have powers that don't particularly fit into these three orders, but since that's just how it's always been, that's how they're always trained. And when you specifically take somebody to school, send somebody to school and have them learn in a certain way, they conform to that certain way, whether that's what they instinctively could do or not.
Right.
But didn't he not test positive for
the
powers during the test?
That's the other.
I mean, neither did she, but that's
like, she specifically pushed it down. We don't know. Maybe Mal was just sitting there with also just like, shitting himself at the idea of leaving Alina. And he also pushed it down. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Magical tracker. Grisha. Ah, yes. The fourth Grisha order. Track coral key.
Oh dear.
Oh Lord, now we're just making things up entirely. I love it.
Leigh, tell us about the track order.
Yeah, if it's ethereal key, a material key, and corporal key, trackeralky?
Trackeralky!
I feel like we just need to add alky to the end, right?
Yeah, that's how that works. Yeah, you just add alky to the end. It's like ology.
Or ism.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so how do we feel about Alina? Or well, I don't even know what comes first. Like, I guess let's go with Mal's death / resurrection. Like which were it was a resurrection, right? Like it wasn't just Tolya and Tamar saving his life. He was actually somehow resurrected by them, by Alina. I that part has always been very confusing to me because like I get that he was dead and then he was alive, but I think it's very vague about how he got from point A to point B.
He was mostly dead.
There you go.
The way I interpreted it was kill the Firebird in the man, but not the man. See, kill the man and the Firebird, but then he goes to King's Cross Station and talks to Dumbledore, and he's like, look at the Horcrux of the Firebird inside you, but are you ready to come back, buddy? So he comes back.
Well, but I really like Jonathan's input that he was, because we've in our episode about Siege and Storm, we discussed the idea of Mal being Wesley, correct? So he was just mostly dead. So that's
go back and listen to the episode on Siege and Storm if you haven't already.
Yes, please do. But yeah, no. I mean, I get that. I know that, like, you know, obviously Tolya and Tamar were like trying to like bring him back to life or whatever. But as we know, that's not really a thing. That you can bring somebody that has been, I don't know, like stabbed in the heart or whatever. Like, so yeah, it to me it feels very plot devicey. I don't know.
He got better.
Huh?
He got better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Low-key, I just felt it was at that point, like, Leigh, like, quietly phoning it in and being like, I'm sorry, Alina, you could have one nice thing.
You can have a resurrection as a treat.
I mean, I do agree. Like, I think it was really like that she was killing the Firebird inside of him. She was killing that piece of him because, as we know, after the fact, he wasn't able to track anymore the way he used to. He didn't have that connection with nature that he had previously. So I do think that's what it was meant to be. I just am not sure I really love how it was handled. I think it was kind of, and again, listen, like, I do not want to like rank on Leigh Bardugo. Like, this series is very well written. I love these books. I love so much about them, but like, you know, you do have to pick. We got to have some sass sometimes, and that's my sass right there. Like, that was like, we could have done better than that.
And again, you can love a thing and still criticize it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And honestly, if it is, you know, big media, like, you know, published content, and not just like, you know, hobbyists creating art, don't do this to cosplayers or artists online, jackholes.
What? What are you referring to?
But so like, it's completely valid to criticize the things that you love because, duh. And you can love the things that you love and still have things not make sense and be like, this doesn't make sense. Why? And that's no problem. And also let it be known now that if I ever meet Leigh Bardugo, I'm just going to be like, explain the intricacies of the logic behind Malice the Firebird, but like in intricate detail that she should have talked to Baghra about if she had the opportunity, because what are the practicalities of this occurring? Please tell me the details.
Agreed.
Baghra,
whichever one of us meets her first.
Baghra was bad fucking ass in this. Like, listen, like, she was always cray, like, cool Baghra, but like, my God, she literally is just like, she knows that because she also has that power of, you know, controlling darkness and shadows, that like she can manipulate the things that her son has created. And she, it's sad that she sacrifices herself, but do we really expect her to live out the series? Let's be real. So it's sad that she sacrifices herself, but like, man, way to go out, Bagra. Like, props.
Listen.
I'm gonna pour one out for Bagra, not on my desk. Not on my desk right now, but maybe later.
Listen, if you're gonna go out dramatically, it might as well be jumping off a cliff while controlling the shadow demons that your son brought into existence in the effort to save the world from the evil of your son. Like,
that's how I hope to go out.
I mean, that's a good goal.
Saving the world from the evil of your son?
Yeah, I was gonna say Midas is just a first goal of not having an evil son.
I mean, sure, that's my first goal, but if I have an evil son, then that's how I'm going to go out.
Okay, that's a fair backup plan. So, in case.
Not to get super personal on this, but like Bagra goes into like she understands why she understands the hand that she had in the Darkling becoming what he was. Now, it is not her fault. It is not like it is never entirely one person that creates that sort of evil, obviously, but like she understands what the hand that she had in kind of pushing him closer to that edge. And like, I'll be honest, like I look at like not my immediate family right now, but like I've had I'm not gonna say one of my grandparents had a very, very, very bad childhood, and that grandparent unknowingly, unwittingly, like the things that they did, the way that they raised their children really really kind of pressed down on them. You know what I mean? Like it didn't make them evil. Obviously they're not evil, but like I see the issues that like were between my parent and their siblings from that. And my parent recognizes it too. And it's just you can I'm trying to think of the way to word this without like actually saying who I'm talking about, but like it is later in life, this grandparent of mine recognized the damage that they had done unwittingly because of how bad their childhood was. I mean, I'm talking raised in seriously abusive foster homes after being given up by their parents because they had too many kids. And I mean, it was a really, really bad. And they passed a lot of these like weird things onto their children. And I just think that like that recognition of the effect that your abuse can have on future generations, like Bagra saw that and regretted it, and I think that's actually an important lesson to take from this series is to like recognize like that what you go through and how you treat, your friends, your lovers, your offspring or whatever can have such a negative effect on them. And you don't even necessarily recognize it at the time. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I did this last time too. I'm babbling again.
No,
like,
you're babbling, but like
because I'm trying so hard to not like name people.
No, it's okay.
hard.
And I think this also makes me think of like Bagra and the Darkling and like her acknowledging the harm that she did to him that did play a part in him, but wasn't, his whole, is sort of akin to Dumbledore and Tom Riddle, except Dumbledore was like, I treated this kid like shit because he was creepy and I just trusted him. No regrets. # no regs. He was evil. And I'm like,
# no regs.
And so like, I hate to always bring back Harry Potter in the year of our Lord 2013, but like, it's part of the reason I find Dumbledore so distasteful as a character is that he does shitty things and never holds ownership for it. And, Tom Riddle was evil. Like, unapologetically, he was always going to be Voldemort. But Dumbledore didn't have to treat him like a criminal his whole life. Like, he literally immediately distrusts the boy and immediately, like, puts him under surveillance. And it's not great. I mean, granted, Tom Riddle was evil, but it's like, still like don't do that to a child. And like more than the actual Tom Riddle bit, I just really dislike Dumbledore because he is terrible to children. Cough. Everything in the series. Cough. But like adults acknowledging when they've screwed up in young adult stories is such an important thing that doesn't happen.
Yes. Yeah.
Because adults are still people and we mess up all the time. But in young adult books, it's either adults are perfect or it's the series of unfortunate events where adults are incapable and cannot do anything at all ever. And it goes to show who I am as a person that I read series of unfortunate events like when I was very young, and I believe that is the reason that I have, been like, yes, sees an adult fucking up. I understand. You are like the book adults. But it's like there's no actual in between, and I like that there was an actual in between here, which was the king being a terrible person, the queen being a terrible person in a different way, Baghra messing up, and actually being like, yeah, dude, I messed up.
Yeah, yeah. Her recognition of like the part that she had and how her son turned out was like, it's sad, but it's also like, thank you, because I don't know. I think like you said, I think it's important for kids to read. Obviously, like this isn't saying like, oh, don't ever trust adults or think everything they do is bad, but like, please don't. Have respect for your elders to like a legitimate like level extent, depending. Not the ones who went over to not the ones who went over to Parlor, but all the other ones. But yeah, I did really like that Baghra, like, because she's so like just and like pissy and cold all the time, but like she admits that she did wrong, and that's really important, I think. And
I also think it brings up like a really important thing about taking ownership for your actions. Like, you're not excused from doing bad things just because you did it to a bad person. Like, it doesn't make you a good person for doing a bad thing. Just like, like for the greater good, it doesn't make you can't do evil things for a good cause and claim to be good. You can't do good things to an evil person. You can't do bad things to a good person, to a bad person and claim. I'm getting all twisted, but the point is that like, your actions are your own regardless of the morality of the people that they affect. And, a part of being like a part of growing as a person and taking ownership for the things that you've done well and the things that you've not done well is acknowledging that you could have hurt some shitty people and, either, if possible, making amends for it, or at least just acknowledging it for yourself. Because, sometimes these shitty people are shitty people that don't deserve apologies, or that you cannot apologize to because that would be more damaging to you. But I think it's still beneficial to look back and be like, yeah, okay, that was still not correct, even though this person was a garbage can. I'm, thinking back on a lot of shitty friendships that I had as a young child and like medium child. Tween. That was the word.
There you go. Tween.
A medium child. But like, looking back on a lot of these friendships, like I did not have a good time with some pretty terrible people being my friends. And usually when things went bad, I would retaliate by just being a dickhead to them because it made me feel better. And, maybe try not to do that. But also, you know what? You do you. I'm not here to tell you what to do.
Therapy can be really great.
And
lots of people should be in it. If only we had therapists in the world of Shadow and Bone, maybe we wouldn't have had the Darkling.
I mean,
I trust me, the person in my life that I like would put like akin to the Darkling went to therapy. The problem with people like that is that they are not honest with their therapists or themselves.
That's real as fuck. And also, like, so I had an emotionally abusive father who I managed to get to go to one therapy session, and he told me that the therapist said that he didn't need therapy, which no therapist is going to say that.
That's just bad therapy marketing.
No therapist would ever say that.
No.
He was also a liar.
No. Okay, so anything else? I had a bunch of quotes that I had put in here for us to kind of go over. One of the ones, it's actually from Siege and Storm, but I withheld it for this week, or for this book, just because we see a lot more of the Merzos. And in Siege and Storm, it's David who's saying it's Alina after she's talking to David, and she's saying in Rovkin, the word for magic and abomination was the same. Basic Grisha theory stated that matter couldn't just be created from nothing, but that was a tenet of the small science. Merzos was different, a corruption of the making at the heart of the world. And I feel like that's just such an important overall, like, we don't see it in book 1, but we obviously see it in book 2 when the Darkling has created his Nishkavoya, and then it continues in book 3 because he's continuing using them as his army, and also he uses them to possess / infect Nikolai. But like I don't know, I guess what and I don't know, like if anybody specifically has anything to say on this necessarily, but that line that, Merzos is a corruption of the making at the heart of the world, like, in a way, like, Mal comes from that. He is part of that corruption. So I don't know, like, it's kind of like, is it like a horseshoe where in the end it kind of just sort of like meets at the top, or what? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I had totally forgotten that the amplifiers are technically Merzos.
Well, not all amplifiers, but certainly.
Like the Morozov's 3 amplifiers are Merzos, and I had completely forgotten about that bit. So,
one question, I assume the Darkling knew that he was related to Morozova, but did his mother ever tell him? That was less than clear to me.
Sorry, what was the question? Do you assume?
I assume that Baghra had told her son that he was related to Morozova, but
no, I don't think I do. Well,
but it wasn't clear if that was true or not.
No, yeah, I don't. I was gonna say I didn't think she did.
Yeah, I thought she didn't specifically.
Yeah, because she was worried, honestly, about his obsession with Morozova. Yeah, I don't know. I would guess that she didn't. I really think that she kept everything about her past secret, including from him. I could be wrong, though.
I don't remember anything.
I'm questioning myself.
Yeah,
I don't remember. I don't think
most of us don't.
I don't think it was made clear in the book. It's just one of those puzzles that.
All right, Leigh Bardugo, we need you to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I think that's a question we would have to ask her as to whether Baghra actually told him. I really thought that she didn't. But actually, now that I'm thinking about it, shoot, like why wouldn't she, and how wouldn't that have become part of why he was so obsessed with Morozova? Like, shoot.
I think that if it's not explicitly stated, then it didn't happen.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe with Leigh Bardugo, but I can't compare her to George R.R. Martin. But like in Song of Ice and Fire, just because something isn't explicitly stated it didn't happen.
I mean, good point, but I also don't like that form of storytelling, so that's probably my bias. Which isn't to say I don't love Song of Ice and Fire. Obviously, I do. But I will say, in Song of Ice and Fire, it's pretty consistent that if a death didn't happen on page, then it didn't happen. And I do think that, like, I'm all for trying to dissect and even diagnose to an extent what happens between the lines in a book, right? But I also feel like there's something important about things that are not explicitly stated. And we can hypothesize and we can, think about what that might mean. But frankly, unless Leigh writes it, because I also don't buy into the whole, well, if the author says it later, like Dumbledore is gay, but it's never actually on the page or on the screen, then fuck that. Like, you can't just like postscript something in.
Yeah.
It needs to be there in some form that is real and that,
It can't just be a
has
tweet.
impact. Sorry, what was that, Nami?
It can't just be a tweet.
Yeah, exactly. It can't be a tweet, because no, that's not representation.
Well, and I guess
is not actually the point I was trying to make, but it gets me so angry that people like her, not Leigh, JK, try to pass representation off as, oh, well, I said in a tweet that that's what it was, even though there's no actual representation in any of the media.
Well, and I guess my thing is, like, did I misread or misremember something? Like, I feel like we were never supposed to believe that Bagra specifically told the Darkling this, but I mean, I could have missed it. Like,
I
even
think
on
if all four of us
second
didn't
read.
remember that happening, then it probably didn't happen.
Yeah, no, I don't think it happened.
I don't think it happened. Or rather, it definitely didn't happen in the first two books. But the way I had sort of read it was that Bagra distrusted him to not tell him many things, and this could have been one of those many things.
Yeah.
Well,
and I read it that, and by the time he would have been old enough to have logically been told this information, I doubt she would have trusted him to tell him this information. He seems like he would have been a problem child.
you think?
Yep.
I'm trying. So
he killed ants with magnifying glasses and then tried to kill cats with magnifying glasses. And then when obviously you can't roast a cat with like the light from a magnifying glass, he probably just like punched them until they died. That's dark.
Upsetting.
Guys, I'm having a time. That's dark.
That went real dark now.
So let's go a little less dark. We don't even need to discuss this necessarily. I just want to, like, props to David, because Genya is like, she freaks out on David because she's like, you just like me now because I need to be fixed. And David is like, I don't understand, I don't understand half of what goes on here. I don't get jokes or sunsets or poetry, but I know metal. Beauty was your armor. Fragile stuff, all show, but what's inside of you, that's steel. It's brave and unbreakable, and it doesn't need fixing. And, like, I don't know about you all, but, like, I wanted to be like Genny, just like, mwah! Like, right in the face.
I would like to take this moment to actually edit my marry, fuck, kill.
You're gonna marry David.
Lie, kill the Darkling, marry David.
I would not marry David only because I have married a David before and it didn't turn out that well for me. But, like, I get it.
Marry David because I feel like we would both sit in a corner and like do our own weird crafty things and not talk to each other for like weeks, and that would be absolutely fucking chill by me.
Yeah, I feel like at the end of the day, Genya would get in real life. Genya would get super frustrated with David because he would just constantly be like, "I got to work on my things," and she would be like, "I want to go to a party." Like,
okay, all right. So this is like a very mild spoiler of like one specific line from King of Scars, but oh man, I want to tell you guys it because it is so good, and it's not like plot relevant or anything, but oh man, it's oh fuck, oh so good. It's just David.
I feel like
Write
I
it
feel like-
down, and then like when we get to King of Scars,
Yeah.
be like,
I
Yeah,
feel like
no,
hold it
this is
in, hold it
I'm
in.
holding it because it is literally like my example. Like David is is objectively my favorite character in this story, honestly, because you know, as much as I love Nikolai, like that suave, like I got it kind of character exists in a lot of places, and I like Nikolai a lot more than normal because they couple that with probably has ADHD, and I'm like, yeah, good shit. Like, give us this. It was like Han Solo with ADHD, and I'm like, all right, cool, let's go. But you know, I loved David because he was just unapologetically like not good at things, and he was just like out here being like, socialization is difficult, so I'm just going to continue to do my shit. But also consider, I say the most insightful things at the terriblest of times. I am accidentally funny without knowing what's up. And did you know that the hot girl likes me? Because the hot girl likes me. And I'm just like, I love you, David. Like, I identify that with that on like a very spiritual level, because when I try to be funny, it doesn't go well. But then sometimes when I like zone out and then say random shit, it's like, haha, Nami, you're a comedic genius. And I'm like, thanks. I think.
huzzah.
And I identify with David just being so out of it. And then every now and then he's in it and he's like, listen, guys, insight. Listen, guys. You're beautiful.
Yeah, every once in a while he every once in a while he has a really good input.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, you are how I wish to be at all meetings. And I love him a lot. And I love him and Genya a lot. And I really love how he's an absolute idiot and he doesn't care about beauty and he cares about her. And I just really love Genya and just I am not ruined, I am ruination. Like, yes, queen! I love her.
Yeah.
I'm the king.
I also
Okay.
just want to give major credit to Leigh Bardugo for some of the like sentences and phrases that she lays down are just like chef's kiss. Like you just killed it. Like that, you could have just had that be on a like motivational poster or something, and I would have bought it. Like I'm consistently impressed by those little what's called like bon mots that she drops inside of a really well constructed story, right? Like it's not just like, oh, she has a great story, or oh, she has these really great lines. It's that she has this really beautiful story, a really impressive saga, if you will. And then like inside of that, she gives these characters these moments that are really beautiful. And they're not always the main character, like David getting this quote. I feel like it's a really beautiful quote, and it's given to this person who, you know, as we've discussed in previous episodes, like he's not one of the like amazing people who does amazing things, and he may, you know, struggle with certain issues, but he sees things in a really beautiful way, and giving him this quote, I think, is really beautiful and important, and I appreciate that Leigh does that consistently in her work. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I agree. You know, and gosh, I mean, I say that and well, I mean, Tolia, now he's talking about Mal and Alina, but at one point he says that Mal watches her the way Harshaw watches fire. Like, he'll never get enough of her. Like, he's trying to capture what he can before she's gone. And it's like, even though that's about Mal and Alina, it's still a really, I mean, he's a secondary character, possibly tertiary, but I think probably secondary. So like you said, like, again, like she has these like insights that are given by these characters who they aren't necessarily super important. They aren't Alina, they aren't Mal, they aren't the Darkling, they aren't even Nikolai really, but they all have their own like depth to them, which is really good.
I like how she kind of makes it that anyone can be profound.
Yeah.
Like, anybody can really sit down and have these like really broad or poignant or just chef's kiss moments, and you don't have to be like an eloquent person. You don't always have to be like a main person. You don't have to be like the focus or anything, but you can still have insights that resonate. And I think that's really interesting because like you can kind of look through all the books, and for all of these characters, like even some very minor ones, you can still think of like times when they do something or say something that's just like, wow. I don't know. I like that. Like, I had completely forgotten that Tolia said that line, and the fact that Tolia said that line, and I'm just like, what? Tolia? Dang!
Well, Tolia does love to recite epic poetry, so
Tolia's a goddamn nerd.
Yeah, you really.
And also, I would like to make the point that just because you can recite epic poetry doesn't mean you can make it.
I don't think he ever tried, though. I think that he just.
I mean, clearly his fire metaphor is like real fire. So maybe he should keep going with that. See,
that's true.
I read
that's
epic
true.
Poetry. Fire metaphor is real fire.
Amazing.
So, we don't have to cover everything, every quote that I copied from this book, obviously. There's at least two more that I want to really focus on. One being from Alina, that the Grisha wanted a Grisha queen, Mal wanted a commoner queen, and what does she want? Peace for Ravka, a chance to sleep easy in my bed without fear, an end to the guilt and dread that I woke to every morning. There were old wants too, to be loved for who I was, not what I could do, to lie in a meadow with a boy's arms around me and watch the wind move the clouds, but those dreams belong to a girl, not to the sun summoner, not to a saint. I think that's really interesting because, first of all, she never actually laid in a meadow with a boy's arms around her, like
on screen.
But she watched Twilight and she was like, "I need that shit."
I mean, Jonathan's right, on screen. Well, but I think that was more a dream of hers, like for her and Mal to. That was the thing she wanted them even before any of this happened. You know what I mean? Like I know it was never. It could just be that it had happened, but I don't think it did. I mean, I think that we're kind of meant to believe that they were buds and that was it.
Yeah, I can't help that the end of this book is so reminiscent to me of the Hunger Games.
I mean, honestly, not at all to me. It hit completely different. But that's just my opinion.
Not to me. I thought it was very, very similar. I mean, she picked the wrong guy.
No.
She didn't want power. She had chances of power and just wanted to be with the guy in the meadow without any stress in her life.
So you were Team Gale, Jonathan?
I thought of the two choices.
No, I was team none of them, honestly.
Well, I said of the two choices.
But no, Peeta's still better. Peeta didn't kill his sister.
I actually liked Finnick, but he was taken.
Yeah. My feelings on like I agree Katniss probably should have. Well, I don't know, no, because that implies that somebody who is broken has to be alone. The reason why I liked that Katniss ended up with Peeta is because they had experienced so many of the same things together. They had both been
right in the game,
truly broken, and not just in the game. I mean, Peeta afterwards too, but like the idea of that the problem is Gale was too angry for Katniss. Yeah. She needed somebody who could calm that rising tide within
Gale
her.
never learned compassion, and neither did Katniss.
Yeah, and
level, and I did that.
And I think like her commonalities with Peeta because of what they went through together, and also just I don't like I don't necessarily I really don't agree with the fact that they had children. That was unnecessary and bad and dumb. But like the idea that they ended up together, like it to me that was how it needed to be if she was going to end up with anybody, because like I mean I'll be honest, like when you're a broken person, like it's better to end up with somebody who and I know Peeta had gone through a lot of stuff too, but he had somehow come out of it more like solid than she had. Like he was still sure of himself more than she ever. I mean, really, he was always more sure of himself than she was. Always more sure of what he wanted than she was, and he mitigates her. You know, he keeps her like true to herself, and also like that at the very end of the Hunger Games where she's talking, you know, the whole idea of like she wakes up screaming from nightmares, and the only reason she's able to hold herself together is because like Peeta is there to hold her, and like I don't think Gale ever would have been able to do that for her. Now I think it's different with Alina and Mal, just because this is actually more of a Katniss and Gale situation where they just loved each other from childhood. And honestly, like Mal was kind of a dick for a long time. And like Alina was just hopelessly in love with this dude who paid zero attention to her. And then like after the fact, he's like, oh no, actually I thought about you every day. And it's like, did you though? Did you?
Okay. So I actually take huge issue with that. I think it is incredibly likely, or rather, I absolutely believe that Mal thought about her all the time. I do not think it was romantic. I think he just loved her as a friend and missed her a lot and really cared about her.
Yeah.
And that there's nothing wrong with that. Alina spends a long time pining, and I think the reason Mal acts like such a jackass throughout most of the book is that's when he actually starts pining. Like, you see all of Alina's like gross, dirty jealousy at the beginning because she's been pining this whole time. With Mal, you see him from Alina's point of view acting like a jackass because now he's finally jealous. Now he cares about this girl. Now he's finally realized he loves her and wants to be with her romantically. So now he's acting like a jackass because he realizes that he has reasons to be jealous. And Alina was kind of doing that the whole time, just, you know, quietly pining on her own end. So I think it's like, yeah, Mal was obviously a dick at times, but I think it's unfair to be like, oh, he didn't think of her. Because like the whole thing there.
Oh, no. I think he thought of her, but yeah, no, I think it was a completely different.
Obviously, like, you know, he didn't have feelings for her right away. And, you know, that doesn't make him a bad person. It just makes him not there yet. And I think the fact that he was a dick after was very much a symptom of him realizing he had feelings and then realizing that those feelings were not coming at a good time, because now Lena is like very important and very beautiful and has all the attention. And now Alina and Mal essentially switch places in what Alina's eyes were. Because like Mal was always the one who fit in. Mal was always the one who got the attention. Mal was always the perfect one who got the girls, who made friends, who was loved, and she loved him, but he didn't know. And now to Mal, all he thinks is that he's finally experiencing what Alina experienced the whole time. And to the outside world, that just reads as general douchery, which is unfortunate. But jealousy is not a pretty thing. And I think that's one of the reasons I like Mal a lot, because he messes up a lot, and like he's not good. Like he is the one who like willingly, you know, like who like basically like cuts off the relationship and goes and makes that with Zoya. Like he's not innocent in this, but I don't think he's a bad person, and I will love him forever and I will defend him forever. And I always think that he is a good partner for Alina, because one, like they have the star-crossed lovers, the boy and the girl, set up from the start, and two, he's what Alina wants. Like screw what we want. Alina wants Sylvie to sit here and say that Nikolai is the better choice for her, because like she clearly wants Mal. And like, yeah, Nikolai might be the more enticing prospect, and like obviously like all four of us here want to be the queen, but like Alina doesn't. And like I think that's like you can't.
I want to be the queen.
Yeah, I think it's unfair to say that she made the wrong choice when she made the right choice for her. And like it's not like the fun, dramatic, high fantasy choice.
Oh, I was never saying she made the wrong choice.
Okay, this is more directed back
I said
to
you
the
made the wrong
initial
choice.
comment about saying that Katniss made the wrong choice for Peeta and that Alina made the wrong choice for Mal. Because I think when you really look at Katniss and Alina as characters, they chose the person that would support them the most and would make more sense for them with what they wanted in life. And I think that's absolutely the right character. It doesn't matter if the other character is cooler. Like, obviously, I wanted Katniss to be with Finnick. Like, Finnick's hot. Like, heck yeah, give me Finnick. Like, I want Finnick, but Katniss didn't want Finnick. You know? And, like, that's, like, I think it's saying that that Alina would be better with Nikolai when she doesn't want to be part of that power, doesn't want any part of that life anymore. I think it's intrinsically unfair to Alina's character, because her whole thing at the end is the reason she literally retires and goes to the orphanage and has a quiet life is because she's fucking done. Like she is just very done.
Although to be fair, she does miss her powers.
She misses her powers, yeah. And I think that's legit. Honestly, if she didn't miss her powers, I would be surprised. Because it was, you know, a part of her, no matter how much she had been suppressing it for so long. She had grown into it, and like it had made her learn about herself. But I also think that as much as she liked her power, she hated the attention, she hated the drama, and she hated the like not the magic power that came with it, but like the societal power and the political power and like all of that influence. She never wanted a part of that. She was just, you know, doing it and like essentially playing the game, the Game of Thrones, you know, because that's what all the people around her were like, you need to do this. Like, you're this important person now, do this, do this, do this. And so she was like, well, I guess. And like literally from the very beginning, she's like, screw politics. I want my friend, the outcast, to sit with me. Like, you know, like she was always framed as that person who like didn't want to deal with the bullshit of societal expectations and just wanted to do her own thing. So her retiring to an orphanage to take care of children and to like make the place that she grew up as to be a better and more loving place was just really poetic to me. Low-key, I thought it was the best ending also because like low-key, I would like to like, you know, retire and open an orphanage. And I was like, yes, living the dream life.
I don't know about an orphanage, but like a dog rescue farm or something.
Yeah, but no, like that was basically my thesis on why I love Mal, and that I've also been holding that off and since the very first episode we did, by the way. I love Mal a lot. Also, my other thing, another reason I will continue to love Mal forever is because Mal is absolutely 1,000% here for consent, even though he kind of misreads it. So if you'll recall, book 2, the reason Mal and Alina basically break up is because she flinches while he's kissing her. Granted, she flinches because she hallucinates the Darkling, which, you know, valid reason to flinch. But Mal's like, I was kissing you and you flinched. Like, you don't want this, so I'm gonna go. And I think that's such a stark contrast of the way the other romantic men in her life treat her that I was like, fuck yes. Like, yeah, he completely misinterpreted everything and fucked things up, but he did it because he took her consent so strongly to the point where he was like, if you don't want this even the slightest bit and I can see even a sense of doubt in you, I'm gonna back off. And I was like, yes, Granted, he didn't need to throw a hissy fit after that and then go make out with Zoya after, like, you know, beating up people in the middle of a bar tonight. But, you know, that's a separate character flaw. But, like...
So that's my problem, though.
The reason I bring that up, though, is because, you know, the Darkling literally just grabs her and kisses her everywhere and haunts her and, like, you know, basically rapes her in her... attempts to rape her in her bed while pretending to be Mal. And Nikolai just grabs her and kisses her for a political move. And, you know... all of these things happen so often in YA novels that I am like, consent, damn it. And then, of course, Mal's the idiot who's like, consent, no! And then he runs off and throws a pity fest. But better than all the people who just, you know, kissed her without asking. Constantly.
I mean, yes. That is preferable in those specific ways.
Yeah, no, don't even get me started on Mal's Fight Club problems, though. Son, you are too young to be an alcoholic. Like, please stop this behavior.
Can I just get a male character who is not horrible in some way? Like, there
were.
So sad that, like, they're
the
all like
the male twin wasn't horrible.
Okay, let me rephrase. You're right.
A male love interest character?
Can I get a male main character / love interest who is not either like consistently violating consent or who reacts in the most like masculine ways when something doesn't go their way?
Well, you know, I will say, I think having characters who react poorly when shit happens is like, duh, it would make sense. I do agree with the not acting in such a masculine way, because low-key would have been nice if Mal got drunk and formed a book club instead to get his frustration out. That would have been nice and not, you know, so cis, hetero, male angled. But I think...
or talk to a therapist.
You know? Nick, this is a fantasy world. Therapy doesn't exist.
I think therapy should exist even more so in
definitely.
worlds.
If I ever write my fantasy book series with that really, you know, complicated like magic system, they gotta have therapy.
Zoya was providing plenty of therapy.
I feel like that could be a whole other Ulky kind of thing. Like Therapelky or whatever, you know, like let's get that in as a magic system.
Oh man. Sorcerers that specify in therapy sorcery, I like it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
like
I
mean it would be like a I feel like it would be like a corporalky combination with like something else.
Oh, absolutely.
Technically it would be fully corporalky because, you know, hormones. Give me that goddamn serotonin. Just plug in and play. Let's go.
God,
no therapy, just direct serotonin. What are we doing here? I don't know what that voice was. It was my give me serotonin voice. But yeah.
That was a good voice though.
Thank you. But yeah,
so
all of that thesis and me screaming into the void was just to be like, I love Mal, and Mal haters can come at me because Mal is 17 years old. He's a fucking child. Like, cut him more slack, because you literally give the evil meth murderer more slack than you give a 17-year-old child who's just trying his best and is jealous now.
I mean, I don't hate Mal. I just think he's a little bit boring. But like,
see, that's the thing. I also agree. I think Mal's boring. Like 1,000% agree. I think Mal is boring, but I think this fandom hates Mal on a level that is absurd to me, and I'm like, fucking sit down. Like, if your complaint is he's boring, 1,000%. He's boring. A+. Like, the boringest boy. But don't hate him. Sit down. Like,
what I don't, well, I mean, and honestly, what I don't understand about, and I've kind of delved a little bit more into this fandom than I ever did the first time I read these books. I don't get the love for the Darkling, and that's actually, that leads into the last point I wanted to talk about. For sure, and this is dark. This is dark. Har har har. This is dark. But the Darkling says to Alina, "I will strip away all that you love, all that you know, all that you love, until you have no shelter but me." Like in real life, people are often abusive because of what they've been through in the past. It's not an excuse, it's just a fact. Not always, but often. And the Darkling is no different. Leigh Bardugo does attempt to humanize him. We certainly see that Alina feels a sort of understanding about or pity for him. But then Bardugo also writes him doing or saying things like this that just show you how he is the epitome of the abusive partner, which just cringe because while yes, separating their partner from friends and family is something that abusive people often do, and again, this is a book, so the fact that in real life they don't usually go around bragging about the fact that that's their goal. Often, I mean, I think many times they might not even realize they're doing it, or might not even be doing it on purpose, but they do. And I just it's so unbelievable to me that somebody would read these books and listen, I can see it in the first book for sure. And even after he does what he does in the first book, it's okay, well, maybe there's some sort of weird fantasy thing, he's sexy and stuff. I don't even know. But at the end of it all, this is what he says to her. I will strip away all that you know, all that you love, until you have no shelter but me. That is not healthy, folks. That is not good. Okay?
Yeah, it's the absolute amount of people who in this fandom excuse the Darkling and proceed to love him are absurd to me. I understand people will ship Darkling and Alina and like that pairing, and while I absolutely find it distasteful and pedophilic and disgusting, I understand that you could do that. But you can ship that ship and also know that the Darkling is a terrible person. My problem with the fandom is that so many people that ship this ship seem to just be like, yeah, no, he's great. He's just a misunderstood fat boy. And I'm like, no, he's not.
A misunderstood frat boy? Is that how they?
Bad boy.
Bad boy.
No, I said misunderstood sad boy.
Oh, sad boy.
We all misheard you.
Yeah, no, he's a misunderstood sad boy. Jonathan, it is
frat boy. I like too, though.
Frat boy. Misunderstood frat boy. Yeah, no, but it is.
That would be worse.
Poll: is the Darkling a misunderstood sad boy, frat boy, or bad boy?
But no, 0 out of 10 do not delve into the parts of the internet that like the Darkling, because, or rather, do not really delve more than knee deep into this fandom, because then you will inevitably find them. And it is genuinely alarming.
There's a couple groups I've joined on Facebook that I am there's people that are do you think in the show that Alina will end up with the Darkling? And I'm like,
wow. I saw that one too, and I was so upset about it.
Yeah, no,
listen, man, I don't want to judge people for the things that they're into, because I have close friends who love Joffrey. Okay, they think Joffrey is the bee's knees, but the thing is, they also understand that he's bad, and they know that they like him. They know that they like him because he's awful.
Yeah.
I have friends who love Ramsay Bolton. I have no idea how, but they love Ramsay Bolton.
Because they didn't see the actor abuse the girl he was with while waiting for the cab.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that real life story.
Oh god,
real life story. Ewan Ruin is actually a huge dick in real life.
Good. Cool. Double reasons to hate that man. Let's go.
But again, I have friends who enjoy these bad boy. I, to be honest, I think Joffrey and Ramsay are beyond bad boy, and the Darkling is too.
No, it's not.
But I have friends who enjoy these bad boy characters, but they recognize that what they're enjoying is evil. Okay, they're not what bothers me about some of the things I've seen is that people actively believe that Alina was better off with the Darkling, and it's like, listen, like I joke all the time, I joke about, oh, why didn't she choose Nikolai? Clearly he's the better choice, and also, yeah, clearly he is the better choice. But like Nami said, she wanted Mal, and also Mal is not a bad choice. Like he's not a bad dude. He's boring, but he's not
Mal is
bad.
a better dude for
Well,
her.
And also, sometimes the boring dude is what you need. Like, I've been through that phase not that long ago. Sometimes the boring dude is what you need for a little while. Just saying.
I mean, the Darkling is the horrible, murderous dictator, but
I see your face.
but similar to Magneto, which I hate to keep going to the well of other pop culture.
Mm-mm.
You know,
Magneto
he's not
is love.
all wrong. I
It's
mean, he was trying to find a place where the Grisha would be safe, and they're not
Well, like-
safe in other places.
See,
You know,
the reason though that this falls apart for him is that he very specifically puts Grisha in harm's way when he does this.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and also, I love Magneto, honestly. He's my favorite X-Men. Like, my favorite.
I don't know enough about
But
it, but I've
like
always
I feel like as
with
as
Optimus.
bad as Magneto can be at times, he's not preying on he does not prey on young women. He does not, as far as I know, like granted I haven't read every single comic, but I'm fairly certain he never preys on young women. He has his stance, and it is, at times it makes sense and at times it's kind of beyond what it should be. But like at the end of the day, it's never like he's not a good guy. We all know he's not a good guy, but he does have redeeming points. And I think with the Darkling, there are some things there that it's like, I get it. Like you said, like he wants to make a safe place for the Grisha, because they're persecuted. And honestly, Jonathan, I can't wait for you to read Six of Crows, because I think you're going to have so much more to say about all of that.
You're gonna have a blast.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, it's not just that he doesn't want them to be persecuted and he wants to give them a safe space. It's that he wants to murder everybody who is like in his way. I mean, to the point. I mean, and it's like this. It's sort of this, like, it's not even like this. God, I don't know. He spreads the fold out and like destroys an entire town. You know,
I figured it out. The Darkling and his view for Grisha is what every single white male who doesn't understand feminism thinks feminism is about. The Darkling's vision for Grisha is that Grisha will rule and that Grisha will be the best, and that a Grisha, will rule everybody. Whereas the Grisha, like, really what the Grisha wanted to not be persecuted. Like that's it. If he stopped there, that would be fine. Not persecuted, accepted, loved, equal rights, we would have been great. But he's like, no, Grisha on top, murder everybody else, we good. So this is, it's literally what people who don't think feminism is legit think feminism is. It's not women are better than men now. It's like, give us equal rights, damn it. Actually equal. And I think Magneto, from what I understand, also let it be known, I am not X-Men savvy at all. I have watched like most of the movies. My Magneto knowledge includes they usually get the hottest actors to play him, so nice. But from what I've seen of Magneto and from what I've understood of Magneto, he will take extreme measures and he believes in fighting very hard, but his stance is not like, mutant supremacy. It's let us fucking live, damn it. And correct me.
I think at one point it does
At
become
one point,
mutant
does it go to
supremacy.
mutant
Yeah, but it's not
great. Magneto.
it's
Just
not
to stay a
murder.
little bit
It's
more
not
of
like
the
murder all
living
normal people
with-
for no reason. Mutant supremacy.
Yeah, it's mutant supremacy because one, if they're not, his experience is if you're not supreme, you're persecuted.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So it's like he tried the equal rights thing and it didn't work for them. So like now it's moved on to the higher level. But again, like I've never felt that, and maybe I was I don't know, maybe I was wrong, but I never felt that Magneto was like, yeah, murder all like let's murder an entire city, okay? Just to prove that we're supreme so that we can then like rule over the entire world. Like I just never felt that was his shtick.
The bigger
No,
issue with the
but he would.
sorry, Nick.
Oh, that's okay. I was just gonna say, but he would like if there was a group of neo-Nazis, he'd be like, I have no problem murdering all of these people, which, I'm not going to be mad at it. So
actually, I would like low-key be happy with that.
/ high key.
No, only low-key. Murder is still murder. We're not about murder here. Don't want to make any Horcruxes, aka the only like Harry Potter relevant thing I will give J.K. Rowling, the solemn declaration that murder is bad. yeah, okay. You were correct.
Yeah. Listen, Magneto is not a good. Magneto is not a good guy, but he doesn't ever go to like the deepest depths. I think that we see from the Darkling. Like, I think the only time he would wipe out an entire like town is if it was literally just full of Nazis, and that's because he's Jewish and he was in concentration camps.
I'm sorry, Magneto. Please murder all Nazis. Neo, otherwise, re-murder them if you would like. You're allowed that.
In case it wasn't clear, we are a staunchly anti-Nazi show. If you are a Nazi, get the fuck out.
Anti-Nazi, please fucking leave.
I feel like if somebody is reading these books and is actually like has Nazi views, then they have like there's something wrong there. Like
it blows my mind though the ways that they are able to like reshape that into their idea of what it should be. There was somebody who dressed up as the Homelander at like a supporting Trump
that goddamn
rally.
Has anyone watched Mythic Quest?
No.
Nope.
On Apple TV.
Oh, I
why
want
no one's watched it. It is so funny, and one of the episodes involves Nazis, and it's just pricelessly funny.
It's called Mythic Quest?
Mythic Quest. So it basically takes place at the equivalent of Blizzard. It's a sitcom of people who work essentially for Blizzard. Only instead of World of Warcraft, it's Mythic Quest is the name of the video game. And it's really, really funny.
I actually just signed up for a free trial of Apple
Ashaya is the one who recommended it to me, actually.
Ashaya from History of Westeros. Okay.
Yeah.
Check it out then. Yeah, but see, I think, all right, here it is. Here is the root of the problem. The problem with people who like Darklings is, as Tara said, you can like an evil character or a bad character as long as you realize they're still evil. But everybody who seems to like the Darkling in this fandom thinks that he's genuinely an okay person. Or thinks that he's genuinely a good partner for Alina. And that's the disturbing part. And I mean, noticed, honestly, a part of this pattern is a lot of middle-aged white ladies who really love the Darkling and Alina. And I'm like, ma'am? Why?
They read too much 50 Shades of Grey, and then they read this book, and they thought, what would be great?
The Darkling pressed his pelvis against her pelvis. Sex.
This is the new fan fiction series we're going to write and then review our own work.
No!
And it's going to be an amazing new podcast. You guys should check it out.
Pelvis versus pelvis.
I do not consent to this.
PvP. That's our new podcast.
No. But yeah, no,
I'm dead.
No. That was a work of art, Nick.
All right, I think that's time to wrap it up.
Yeah. Yes. Oh God. Okay. So, any last thoughts on Ruin and Rising before we close it up? Like I'm very excited. Honestly, like I'll be real. I loved rereading these books, and when I first read anything from the Grishaverse, I started with these and then I went to Six of Crows. So like I had this sort of connection to these books, and also I think the idea of being like having gone through a past where I was in an abusive relationship really gave me that like extra like connection to these books. But I've already finished rereading Six of Crows because I just was so excited to move on. And I'm just really excited to get onto the next novels, because not only do I, like, we've talked about this before, hashtag we love growth in this house. Like Leigh Bardugo as an author grew so much between writing this trilogy and writing the Six of Crows duology, but also like as much as I loved these books the first time I read them, and as much as I still like enjoyed rereading them, they were quick reads. There is like, I remembered the things I loved. I picked out more things I loved. It was also like, I think I also sassy picked out, you know, a lot of things I disliked about them that I maybe didn't even notice the first time around. So I'm very excited to move on to Leigh's other works, because I do really think that I overestimated like how I felt about these books the first time I read them, because A, first time, and B, you know, the connection to the abusive relationship situation. And again, now reading like Six of Crows, it's like, oh, I see other things about like who I am as a person in some of these characters. So I enjoyed rereading these books, and honestly picking them apart a little bit, not too much, thank God. Let's not ever do chapter by chapter. But yeah, I really love this, but I'm really excited to move on to her future works that show just like how much she's grown as a writer, as a person, maybe in a way.
As a world builder.
As a world, yes, because like that's the thing. It's all in the same world. And honestly, as a character builder too, the characters in her later novels are so much better. And some of them you do end up seeing eventually. You do end up seeing, and even getting POVs from not in the Six of Crows duology, but in King of Scars, you do end up getting POVs from characters that you meet in the Grisha trilogy. So it's absolutely necessary to read these books. And again, I don't even want to say necessary, because I do still love them. But there's so much more to look forward to, y'all. I'm so excited.
I will say Six of Crows does, as a duology, stand on its own, but if you do want to read King of Scars, you absolutely should read the Grisha trilogy first. And even Six of Crows, I personally found myself, the way I actually read things was Six of Crows, Grishaverse, and then the second book in the Six of Crows duology, Crooked Kingdom. So, you know, I'm so excited because Six of Crows is literally my favorite thing. Six of Crows is the book that got me back into reading recently, because, you know, adult life happens and there is no time, and all the time that you don't have to read, you sleep, or it's a work, you sleep. And it's, you know, I missed reading a lot, and like Six of Crows was what really pulled me back in. And also, like, you know, maybe some close friendships that I didn't realize could have been close friendships before. And it was just a lot of really good things came out of that book. And, you know, this podcast came out of that book in a way, because it's the reason I got into the series, and it's the reason that Tara reached out to me when she wanted to do this. And I was like, fuck yeah! And, you know, I love Six of Crows so much. I love Leigh Bardugo so much. I really enjoy the Grishaverse and this trilogy for the like basic fantasy girl saves the world story that it gives us, while also giving us some new things in there, while also exploring a new magic system, while also, you know, setting it with a different cultural background, while also, you know, having an abusive relationship and actually showing that it's bad, and making a character that's like very unapologetically bad. And, you know, I liked all of those things. It also involved like a love pentagon or something. And
I think it's just a square at this point.
Yeah,
a love square. Multiple planes.
No, a love talon. It's just Alina in the middle and like three prongs, and they're like, "Rawr! I'm a bird foot."
I'm a bird foot. Your mouth noises are so great.
They really are.
God,
I'm so excited to talk about Six of Crows with you guys. It's going to be so great.
All right, Jonathan, any last thoughts?
No, I think I'm gonna save my fire for the next book.
Oh, I honestly, I really think you're gonna really love. Well, I don't know, like
I'm one chapter in so far, so
it's fantasy and heist. So like generally
So
not the
good.
type of thing I would normally like get attached to, but again, Leigh Bardugo really does a great job with the characters in this. So,
well, being one of my favorite books as a, I wouldn't say kid, but as a young adult, was science fiction and heist, which was the Stainless Steel Rat. I'm looking now forward to it.
All right. Oh yeah, it's very heisty. It's very
heisty, and it's.
I don't think that's a word, but
it's technology, and it's everything good about a fantasy story and a heist story, and then just smashed together with one bad person in it, and I just pretend he doesn't exist for my sanity. You know, if you know, Jonathan, if you know anything about me, you will immediately know who the character I hate is, and you'll just be like, "Yeah, I get it."
Well, now I'm curious.
Tara, it's so fucking obvious.
All right. Well, I don't want to spoil anything
episode.
about. So we will be back. We will be back in 2 weeks. So that is Wednesday, December 2nd, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
December 2nd.
Yep.
Wednesday, December 2nd, we will be talking about Six of Crows, but only through part 3. So we're splitting the books again because these are actually much longer. So hopefully we'll have people joining us. And thank you guys again so much for talking about Ruin and Rising. This was a good, I think, conclusion to our discussion of the Grisha trilogy. But yeah, really can't wait to get into the Six of Crows duology. And everybody have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.